"Get me a coffee. Black." That's what he said. Not to a waiter, not to a coffee shop barista, but to David, his assistant, right in the middle of a crucial board meeting. The man saying it, Arthur Vance, a Wall Street legend, a titan of industry whose name echoed through the halls of power like a thunderclap. And David? He wasn't just an assistant. He was a prodigy, a Wharton graduate with a mind sharper than a serpent's tooth, who had single-handedly saved Vance's firm from collapse, not once, but twice. But Vance, blinded by arrogance, saw none of that. He just saw an errand boy. David calmly placed the coffee on the polished mahogany table, his movements precise, betraying none of the storm brewing inside him. The room was filled with a board of directors, men and women who held the fate of a multi-billion-dollar empire in their hands. They watched, some with pity, others with a smug satisfaction. This was Vance's world, and in his world, you either submitted or you were broken. And David Vance's voice dripped with condescension. "While you're at it, clear out your desk. You're fired." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. A gasp rippled through the room. Firing his most competent employee in front of the entire board. It was a power play, a brutal and public execution designed to show everyone who was boss. Vance leaned back in his chair, a cruel smile playing on his lips. He expected David to crumble, to beg, to plead, but David didn't. Estid his gaze unwavering. He looked at Vance, then slowly, deliberately, he scanned the faces of every single person in that room. He met their eyes, one by one, holding their gaze until they squirmed in their seats and looked away. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. It was no longer about a fired assistant. It was a reckoning. The air crackled with unspoken tension. What was he going to do? Yell? Instead, David simply nodded. "As you wish, Mr. Vance," he said, his voice calm, yet carrying a weight that made the room feel 10 degrees colder. He turned and walked towards the door, his footsteps, the only sound in a deafening silence. Every eye followed him. As his hand touched the doorknob, he paused. "Et tournez baka?" Ghost of a smile on his face. "But before I go," he began, "there's something you all should see." He pulled a small, sleek flash drive from his pocket and tossed it onto the center of the table. It skidded to a halt right in front of Arthur Vance. "Project Chimera," David said, the name dropping like a stone into a still pond. "I believe you are presenting its Q3 earnings projections today, Mr. Vance. You might want to take a closer look at the real numbers, the ones I prepared." Vance scoffed. "Nonsense. I reviewed the projections myself." But a seed of doubt had been planted. One of the younger board members, a woman named Eleanor Hayes, picked up the drive. "What is this, David?" she asked, her voice cautious. "The truth," David replied simply. "Plug it in. You'll find it in the folder labeled contingency." With that, he opened the door and walked out, closing it softly behind him, leaving a room full of sharks to devour each other. Eleanor didn't hesitate. She plugged the drive into her laptop, and the main screen at the front of the room flickered to life. Instead of Vance's rosy projections of 30% growth, a different set of figures appeared. Cold, hard, and brutal. The screen showed a catastrophic decline, a nosedive so steep it looked like a cliff edge. The numbers were backed by irrefutable data, market analysis, and internal reports that David had meticulously compiled. He hadn't just predicted a storm. He had mapped out the entire hurricane. Vance's face went from pale to ashen. This is fabricated. Lies, he stammered, but his voice lacked conviction. The board members were staring at the screen, their faces a mixture of shock and dawning horror. They were looking at the complete and utter ruin of their flagship project. The project Vance had personally championed, sinking billions into it against David's documented warnings. The files are all time-stamped, authenticated, and cross-referenced, Eleanor announced, her voice cutting through Vance's blustering. She clicked open another file. It was a chain of emails. Emails from David to Vance, sent over months, filled with detailed analyses, charts, and stark warnings about the project's fatal flaws. Each email was met with a dismissive, often insulting, reply from Vance. The final email, sent just the day before, was a comprehensive plan to mitigate the disaster, a salvage operation that could still save the company billions. Vance's reply: "Stop bothering me with this nonsense and get my dry cleaning." The room erupted. The silence was shattered by a cacophony of accusations. "You knew about this, Arthur. You hid this from us. My God, we're ruined." Vance, the Titan, the king, looked small and pathetic, backed into a corner by his own hubris. He had tried to silence the one man who could have saved him, and in doing so, had handed him the weapon for his own destruction. While chaos reigned in the boardroom, David was miles away, sitting in a quiet cafe. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Eleanor. They're invoking the key man clause. "Bansi, he's out. The board has voted you in as interim CEO. Your first order of business is to fix this mess. What's your price?" David looked at the message, a slow, genuine smile spreading across his face for the first time that day. He took a sip of his coffee. It was black, just the way he liked it. He typed his reply, short and to the point. "My price is respect and a controlling stake in the company." He hit send. He knew they would agree. They had no choice. The story of what happened in that boardroom became a legend on Wall Street. It wasn't just about a corporate take. It was a lesson that true power isn't about shouting the loudest or sitting in the biggest chair. It's about competence, integrity, and knowing your worth. David didn't need to raise his voice. He let his work, his excellence, speak for him. And in the silent, stunned aftermath of Arthur Vance's spectacular fall from grace, David's quiet competence echoed louder than any roar ever could. He showed them all that in the end, the sharpest mind, not the loudest mouth, always wins the game. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content just like this. See you in the next video.